on, Foxy. It's your birthday. Not for real, just for play. This is Cree Summer, and Moana Nui will be right back.
Listen to the dulcet tones of them singing for us. That's so beautiful. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to DragonCon 2024. My name is Tony Gowell, and tonight we are going to discuss all matter of lights, camera, behind the action. Jarvis is a fantastic track director, and I will tell you one of the many reasons why. I provide him with a list of all the approved moderators that he can select to help with his programming. And he is the best. He's just like, oh, here's a list of 25 people. So for panel number 1, it's this person. For 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's great. So I'm always excited to see what he's asked me to moderate. So these are the types of panels that I enjoy. I'm a 24-year employee of DragonCon. Oh. Yes. Thank you.
Age of 5.
Seriously. That's right, I was a fetus. I jumped over the umbilical cord to answer the phone. So as an employee of the company, I am always excited to have these moments, to still be included and be a part of the fun part of DragonCon. Because when you prep a show, it's a lot of work. Like, if you ever planned like a really large party, raise your hand, and you're just so obsessed with every little detail being as perfect and close to amazing, and you're always concerned about whether your guests are going to have a good time. So when I get here, it's like kind of like that sigh of relief. I can't prep the party anymore. It's happening. So all I can do is prevent people from, going home with Grant, Aunt Matilda, or falling into the punch bowl, that kind of thing. So that's what I love about doing these smaller, intimate panels. So I'm very excited to be joined by some fantastic people from the industry, and I would love to start introductions. To my right, your left.
I'm Dana Morgan. I am a assistant producer and graphic designer for The Bop with Karen Ashley, the Yellow Power Ranger. I'm also an executive producer and co-host for Moana Nui Podcast. And I'm a voice actor and do a lot of other things behind the scenes.
I love that. And I was like, Anne in charge of her own massage. She's like,
hello, my name is Dana. I'm a voice actor.
I love it. So nice to see you again. And to my left, your right.
I'm Scott Bellamy. I work for Absolute Entertainment. It's a local Atlanta-based event planning company. I've worked for them for about 2 years now, so I am their senior event coordinator.
And my name is Tanner Gerard. I work with Destination South Meetings and Events here in Atlanta as well as Charleston. I am the senior manager of operations on our team. And so we do a lot of really cool, fun, different types of events with corporate as well as fun. So.
Hello, I am Barr Foxx. I am a television and film producer. I am also the creator of Cosplay Your Way. I do a lot in television and film. I film produce, I post produce, I do all of those things. I used to work for Magic Johnson, and I launched his network, and now I work for Tyler Perry. So I work for TPS, and I'm over a number of shows that air on BET and Prime and all the other stuff. Not the movies yet, but the TV shows. And that's what I do.
Wow, what a prestigious group of panelists. I feel underprepared. So I put together a show for 80,000 people every year. That's my gig. But I want to, Tanner, had you built in tonight's conversation how we met recently the other day about what you were doing to assist us here at DragonCon? Were you saving that story?
I was gonna, talk about
cool. Because I wanted to sing your praises for something that you did, but if you're building it in, we can touch on it later. All right, is that a deal?
That's a deal.
All right, cool. Awesome. I'm excited to kick things off by asking the first question, which I think is on everyone's mind. Why did you choose to be behind the scenes and work instead of in front of the camera always, but being kind of like that unsung hero side of the business? What do you get out of it? Dana, you're first. Go.
Well, outside of the other things, I'm also an executive assistant and event planner for a corporation. So it's that fulfillment when you see everybody's enjoying themselves, everything's going smoothly. Any hiccups that happen, no one recognizes it because you're being stealth enough, even though you're screaming in your head about what just happened. Just getting those things out the way, and then you can just breathe a sigh of relief, like, yeah, this is it. Even though people try to get me more in front of the camera, but it's a process.
I agree with what you're saying, is that sometimes you don't need an army of people to tell you how amazing you are. It's that how you rush to action whenever there's something that needs to be handled, that you do it with like grace and serenity, so that they don't see like the duck on the water just paddling furiously underneath it, so that afterwards you can be like, yeah, I did that. And it's okay if people don't necessarily recognize it, but you see the fun and the awesome that the event was, and you take away that gratitude. I get that. I align with that a lot. And how about you, sir?
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's you kind of get this joy of knowing that even though there were a few hiccups possibly, that people didn't notice that there were hiccups. I personally just really enjoy helping people. I like working with the performers and actually getting them where they need to be and in place, and then watching people's eyes light up once the performers that I coordinated start performing. So.
Is it similar for yourself, Tanner?
Very much so. In fact, Scott and I work together a lot when I bring talent onto some of our meetings and events and the big corporate stuff. But it is really something that's special, being able to work for however many weeks and months leading into something, to then see the reactions when people walk in the doors. And it's nice being that behind the scenes, because you also can kind of hang along the wall and you're not in the middle of everything. So you get to hear like true kind of unedited feelings about the people that are just like, oh, that is so cool. Oh my God, did you see that performance? And you get the sense that, hey, I got to do that. I got to make somebody's life or day, maybe not life, but make their day.
It might make their life. You never know.
You never know.
Help create some memories for them. Yeah.
That's right. For me,
sorry, Barr, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Just to make sure you were included.
Oh, okay, thank you. For me, it was more, when I was younger, I had a television show. It was local. It was only across 3 states. But I had a show, and one day the show aired, and I just didn't like the way I looked.
Okay.
So I went in to talk to the editors and everybody, and I was like, what can I do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because it was just some angles, and it was like, well, if you want to learn how to edit, then come in and edit. You can help out. And I was like, okay. So I think what happened with me is seeing my image or the way I was presented not to the level that I would like. I wanted to have a little bit more influence on that. So I learned how to edit, so I could go in and help. If they didn't want to do it, I would just recut the stuff. So I started off as an editor, and then after that, I was like, okay, well, I'm working on a lot of shows, but I want a little bit more influence on what's shot and why it's shot. Mm-hmm. So that's when I upgraded to producer. So I guess I get mad and I just level up. Maybe that's what it is.
What a way to finish off that first question. But I have a follow-up for you before we turn it to the audience. So, Barr, in that editing process, when you were saying that you first saw that episode and you weren't pleased with the way you were presented, do you really feel that it was just shoddy editing, or was this something a bit more personal about your perception of your appearance?
I think at that time it was just lazy editing.
Okay.
I don't think it was anything negative. They did have a limitation for that show. I had to shoot on location for that show, that specific episode, and the person that was editing, I just don't think he or she had that experience to make sure you maximize the look or made it look a lot more festive than what it did. They really shot. So it was lazy editing.
Gotcha. So were you, because I'm like deep into the psychology of this, because you were at a young age, did you worry that it was your perception of it? Like, did you really worry about that? Or was it as you became an adult, you realized, oh yeah, that was shoddy editing on their part, they weren't really prepared to do that level of work that was
at the time, since I didn't know everything about editing, I just remembered shooting a spectacular scene in my own head. Now, that's not necessarily true. You always think you shot something and it's not what translates sometimes. But in my head, I was like, we really worked this scene out well, so why does it look this flat?
Gotcha.
So I was like, can I see the footage? Can I see? Because something has to be done. So it was kind of my first introduction to saying, hey, something's missing, and I think we can find it in the footage. It just so happened we did find it in the footage, which let me know that the editing was lazy.
Okay, good. Awesome. Full circle moment. So I just want to make sure it's like, you look just fine. Just fine. All right, does anyone have any question in the audience for our guests this evening? Because I'll come up with all of them myself if you don't participate. Trust me. Now, I see a few people in the audience that are in the industry. Raise your hand if you are. Yeah. So, oh, come on, you're in the industry. Don't try it. I saw that. But I saw your hand shoot up in the back.
I just want to hear about, like, what's your favorite part of what you do?
Ooh.
What keeps you going?
Okay, back to you,
Because
Dana.
there's a lot of BS even in working in a creative field.
Yes.
So what keeps you going when all the paperwork and BS starts bogging you down?
What sparks joy?
Yes.
For me, with the show with Karen, the Bob, it's just her and her co-host interaction. They can be so nutty on there, and it's unfiltered, and it can go left very quickly. And on occasion, they have to pull me from behind the scenes to settle arguments. But other than that, it's just like it's the hilarity of everything. But the conversations, seeing how the audience is reacting and engaging with them during the episode. But then also kind of seeing from the audience too, saying, oh my gosh, this was such a great episode. Oh, I was having such a crappy day, and just y'all made me laugh until I was crying. Or even with my other shows, like, oh, this was a topic that was so needed to be talked about. I'm glad y'all talked about that. And it just made it, all the work behind the scenes, the logistics, the coordinating of schedules for any panelists or any special guests, getting that all done. And it's like hearing that confirmation from the audience and things is also just, okay, we're doing what we need to do. What else can we do? What else are we hearing from them that they really want to tune in for?
That's a great answer. Follow that.
Yeah, so before I got into event planning, I was a retail manager for 30 years. The last 10 years of that, I worked for a local costume shop, and the joy that I had in that was that I got to help people with their creative endeavors. Like, people would come in to me, I was able to help them. I quite a few familiar faces in here, the people that I helped. Yeah, so that was the joy in that, was that I got to actually help people's visions and dreams come true. And so when I got into event planning, it's kind of, I was able to take that and transition it into event planning as well. So I still have to source people, and I have to get them dressed, and I have to kind of make my boss's vision come true. So that's still a very rewarding part for me, is making other people's visions, helping their visions come true. So, yeah.
So far we have finding the people that have the platform and the voice to say the things that you feel are important, still facilitating the ideas of putting events and things together, bringing in that hospitality of being able to help the individual, but now on a larger scale.
Exactly.
So that you feel that you're touching more people. Mm-hmm. How about you, sir?
I would say that the really, I guess, joyful and rewarding thing that you have when you do any sort of meeting and event logistics really comes down to every day is different. And, yes, we do. I have corporate clients throughout the year, and you would think, how different can a meeting be? How different could that reception be? But it gives you the opportunity to have new challenges, be able to do really cool things based on what they want. And then, you get to work with local people in the industry who, like you were saying, they help bring that vision to life. And so the fact that every day's different is great, because you're going to have some bad days, but then that means you're going to have some good days.
So my best friend calls me every day to ask me what I'm doing, just because she wants to hear what I'm doing, because it's never the same. Every day she calls me. She's like, "What are you doing today?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm making a flower hat." "What are you doing today?" "Oh, I don't know. I'm washing some pantyhose." "What are you doing today?" Every day. It's like you're everywhere.
That's funny.
My sweet little mom, she always tries to keep her calendar, and she's like, "Where are you going to be on Friday?" I'm like, "I'm at the Hilton." "Where will you be on Saturday?" "The Marriott Marquis." "Okay, and then you're going up to the Galleria." Like, she just can't. Bless her heart, she can't keep it straight. But she's sweet.
And it's sweet that she's involved enough and is supportive.
That's right.
Barr, how about yourself? What sparks joy?
What sparks joy for me is literally helping people level up and spotlighting people. So I'm going to do a shameless plug right here. I was recently...
It's not shameless.
A shameless plug. I was recently on Good Day Atlanta, if anybody watches that.
I saw you.
Did you see me?
Yes,
He used to interview me.
He used to interview you? Now he's going to go, thanks for the plug. But what I loved about the spot was not necessarily that I was on it, which I did love, but when we were in there and I needed a bow tie for the look that I was creating for Paul, it wasn't there. And I remember that a bow tie a regular tie could be tied into a bow tie.
True.
And I couldn't do it. I have never done it. But luckily, I talked to the manager that worked there, and he said, "I can do it. I know how to do that." And I was like, "Well, then you're in the spot. So call everyone that you need to call, see if it's okay for you to be in the spot with me." And he was like, "Okay." And I love doing that for people because that day he didn't have any idea that he was going to be on Good Day Atlanta. But because of his skill set and because of us talking to him and finding out what he could do that was different and special, it landed him a nice little area in the spot. And we're going to do a longer version of that for the release on Saturday. But I love doing that for people. When I worked at Magic Johnson, I created these things called I Aspire profiles. So I went out to find people, especially people of color, that were doing things that people thought was uncommon. For instance, there was a black surfer, there was a female race car driver. There were a lot of things that I got to spotlight. So I love to be in a position to just re-educate and to let people know that people of color are just so talented in so many ways, and we can't be kept in a box, and we do so many things.
Great. As a white person, I'm tired of white people stuff. So I've lived in East Point for 20 years. I feel okay in saying that. Because as an adult, I did not have the luxury as a child to travel and experience different cultures and to find the richness of so many things. If you see my waistline, I love food. And when I travel to different countries, their food is so much better than our food. And that translates into all different types of art and culture. You're just like, people are just different, but we're all the same. We're still all human beings. Mm-hmm. Yes. So just seeing the things that we do wrong in our country, but that other countries do so right, I'm just like, oh, thank you for lifting up people of color's voices. Because yes, there are black surfers.
Yes.
Yes, there are female race car drivers that are not white. There are people of different nationalities and cultures that participate in this thing called humanity and living our life. So thank you for being a voice. So I love that you're seeing the platform and you're giving the platform and just wanting to be a part of that process. So you can be like, I'm proud of that. I was a part of what shaped that. And so thank you for sharing that answer. That's awesome. Yeah. Who has another question? Yes, sir. You, there, in the glasses.
Yes.
Lou. Oh my gosh, did I predict your name correctly?
I don't understand.
I know, it's crazy, wild. Lou's on my team, everyone. Give it up for our volunteers that work hard to put on 2,600 of them. 2,600, yeah. Lou, what you got?
For reference on my question, I'm an IATSE 600 digital loader.
What is that?
I am a member of the Film Camera Union, and as part of the camera department, I'm in charge of all the digital media that is recorded and then taking it off the cameras and onto the drives to go to the next stage, and then I handle all the paperwork for my department. Coming from that perspective, and all of you as producers and event planners, how do you handle the dichotomy of the crisis management where you are going from fire to fire, and just jumping from one thing to the other, and being able to give yourself proper planning that allows you to handle those situations instead of running around like a chicken with your head cut off.
Okay, Phil Donahue, thank you for that long soliloquy. Just to sum up, it seems to be like, what is your style of problem-solving approach for these things that pop up? Barr, can I start with you and go back the other way?
Yeah, absolutely. You are absolutely right. There's a lot of running around with our heads cut off. There's a lot of, oh my God, what's going on? What we do, because we shoot quickly. I'm sure you know. So it's all about really double downing on the media management, having people on staff that, for me, that work the daytime and nighttime so we can get all of that stuff processed. Now, all of these things don't work all the time, but these are some of the things I've put in place recently to try to help with the big turnaround, especially the different cards that you guys use, the different sizes, when we want to go 8K and don't need to. I'm sure you know everything I'm talking about. So we do all of that stuff, but right now we're making sure we're not forgetting in post the importance of media management in the digital aspect, and we're putting more people in place. So right now I have a person that is great title, she's over all of it, and it's like 3 or 4 people under her. Everyone knows that the hours could be wonky. We know that, hey, you might have to come in later, and we're flexible, because that's what's helping. Being flexible with their time and being upfront in the beginning and understand it. And we also talk to people like you when we're working on the show to get your opinion, to get your knowledge, instead of assuming that we know what we're doing or we're going to get it the way we think we're going to get it. And we do camera tests often, and we also do media tests to try to put it in. Like that first one you give us is all the troubleshooting just to make sure. And we keep in communication. So communication and planning. Not saying that it's perfect, but that's what we're doing.
But those are good starting blocks. Communication and planning are part of everything in order for you to get to the goal you want. Tanner, how would you add to that?
I would just say that having Plan B and sometimes C and D and E are always good. You don't necessarily have to have them flushed out in your head completely, but just having an idea of, you know what, okay, I know that we're bringing in this, we're doing this. We had an event a few days back where Megan Thee Stallion was performing next door to our venue, and we're like, traffic's gonna be nuts. So realizing that, okay, we can just change the route to drop off these 12 56 passenger buses. We'll just bring them in a day, and just so kind of that solution finding while you're either leading into or when you're on site. I also think it's the best thing that you can do for yourself and your team, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, and it's one of the philosophies I live by, is being that duck on a pond. You are still in calm, moving on the surface, and everything's great, and your little legs are just kicking. And so if your team sees that, then they realize everything's fine. He's got it, she's got it, they've got it, we're good. And the client won't realize it. The end result, you can turn the ship, and you can make it right.
Being in control of your emotions.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. It's okay to be not cool when it's appropriate to not be cool.
Take a
but
step
people
away.
are always watching.
Take a step away if you need a minute to be not cool. I've had to do it.
Sure, because has anyone ever had a boss that lost their cool and that wasn't part of their natural process, which automatically stepped you up anxiety-wise? Mm-hmm. So as people are watching, if I saw my boss lose it, I would be like, oh, we're all going to die. Like, if my bosses at DragonCon, who are the board of directors, lose it, what do I do? Like, because I've never seen them lose their cool, especially at the show. And that's important. It's just like being in control of your emotions. That's a huge part of problem solving. Absolutely. How about yourself?
Yeah, one of the biggest compliments that I get from a lot of the people that I work with is that I'm always able to stay kind of cool and don't let my emotions get the best of me. Don't let the situation get the best of me. Because you run into especially with event planning, you run into hurdles every day. All of downtown doesn't have water. Guess what? and we have a 500-person conference that needs to happen. So what are we going to do? You know what?
We got the last restroom trailer in Atlanta and pulled it up in front of the Hall of Fame and made it work.
Yeah, made it work. So that's what you have to do. You just have to kind of, and so don't lose your cool. Like you were saying, have plan A, be overly prepared. Always have a backup. I'm always prepared especially like if I've got performers and I have to costume them, I always take 4 or 5 different options, because should my client, I put the performer in something and my client says, I really don't like that. Well, you know what? I've got 4 backups. Right. You're going to like one of these. So I always have that. I'll always have excess of what you think you're going to need. And then, just always prepared, always stay cool-headed, and, just kind of, and also hope that you've got people that or actually make sure that you've got people that are working with you that are also able to flex. So because I recently had to do a gig where I had 6 performers that I had to get into 6 different places, and at one point there was a miscommunication between my client and another client, and things weren't moving as smoothly as they wanted to. I had my people where they were supposed to be, but the great thing about my performers was they understood that they needed to flex and go where the client asked them to go, and they were able to do that, and I didn't have to worry about them giving any kind of pushback. So they were all just very flexible and would go with the flow.
Tanya, do you have anything to add?
Communication is key, not only with your team, but with anybody involved with any of the hiccups, to make sure that also makes that person feel like they're being heard.
Yes.
You're being responsive, but then also treat everybody with kindness, even though you want to scream at them in the head, because there's times you'll be like, I told you like 2 months ago to get this information to me, and you coming to me the day of, okay. But you just keep it, it's like, okay, smile, and just keep it professional, like you said, keep it calm, and then also, as Scott mentioned, having that team that you can trust and can flex with you, that all you have to do is say a word, they know how to respond for you. That way, it's not just you running around, they also have divide up the work and divide and conquer for you.
Yeah, empower your team.
Yeah.
Great question.
Thank you so much.
So you now have all the information you need for any possible fire. Egos aren't a part of it. Finances aren't a part of it. You have all the ammunition you need to handle it. What's another good question? Yes.
Hi. I had a question. It applies to everyone, but it's specifically to Barr. What was your transit? What was the difference between where you started from the producer side to when you were making that transition to TPS? Because I know TPS moves in a different, faster pace and stuff. So what was that big, the biggest hurdle that you had to face from the producer side?
Making the transition from the reality TV shows I was doing to the fast pace.
Yeah.
Wow, the fast pace. I would sit. So my other shows I did work for Ricky Smiley for Real. I did Beyond the Pole. I did the CW. We had a show called March. I had time. I sculpted the story. When you told me, it airs in 3 months or 4 months, I said, oh my God. But when I went to TPS, I'm like, okay, we're shooting on Monday, and then they're like, yeah, and I'm like, cool, I got 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and they'll be like, we're wrapped. And I'm like, oh. So I had to make a very big adjustment to that. One of the biggest adjustments was that because of the accelerated schedule and the way that they shoot, it puts even more sometimes on the post-production and the post-producing process. Because you're shooting so quickly, you might not take the time or have the time to do some things that you would do normally to avoid in the post-process. So all of that had to make me readjust of how I approached the show and what I needed to do to get it to air. It was so funny. I was sitting there and I saw such a big VFX budget, and coming from where I came from, I was like, why? But I understood it after I started working there because I'm like, it's a lot of stuff we need to do from a VFX standpoint with an accelerated schedule. And that's anyone with an accelerated schedule. You're just not going to see everything. And I'm talking about things as simple as chords in the shot. Things that you have to VFX out. It's not special effects necessarily, but just taking out things that you didn't have time to prep for. So you have to make an adjustment for that speed, an accelerated rate. And many things are moving to an accelerated rate. It's working for people. So if you're in television and film, kind of get prepped and prepared for, you might go from a show that you had 3 months into a show where you have a week to really knock it out.
Whew, that's a huge transition.
It is very huge.
To workshop what you asked specifically for Barr, I think you can apply to them. And I think it would be interesting to hear a story of, have you ever had a last minute change in a timing schedule that you thought you had more time than you wound up actually having that you would like to reveal?
With the Bob, a lot of our content tends to be pre-recorded, like typical television, and occasionally they want to go live. And a lot of times when they tell me that last minute, they're like, "Oh, we want to go live." And it's just like, okay. And my other show is live 95% of the time. So the unpredictability of everything. But my favorite is just like, oh yeah, the guest wants to go live instead of getting recorded. They want to do it at 8. Okay, let's get that. Making sure, okay, well, we need to do A/B testing, all that kind of stuff. And my favorite is when they get on, they're like, oh, well, I decided I'm going to join at 7:59. So I'm like blowing up everybody. Hi, I want to make sure so-and-so is still going to be joining us on the line. We want to make sure there's no changes, everything's okay, and not sick or anything like that. Oh yeah, that person's joining. They're fine. Okay, well, we got like a few minutes before we're supposed to go live, and we haven't tested, make sure the mic, the camera's working, and everything, and then they'll join and like find out the mic's not working, everything else, and it's just like, okay, and then I'm trying to get them to get their person and to help them, and a lot of times the people are not technically savvy on any of their technology they're using, so they're trying to figure it out, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna turn my computer off, and it's like, oh, it's doing updates. Oh.
The bane of every podcaster or live broadcaster's existence. Oh, my computer is doing an update now.
So I'm like, okay. So I have to update the audience to say, okay, we have to push the episode to 8:30. Please, we're looking forward to it. We had some technical difficulties and those things, but you just had to like keep that communication with the audience so they would still tune in, but at the same time you're just like, okay.
So stressful.
Yeah.
How about you, gentlemen? You have a story like that?
Yeah, the last job that I did, I was only supposed to be coordinating the arrival of a 16-piece band and 2 aerialists. And there was another event planning company that was going to be providing 4 other entertainers, 2 winged LED greeters and 2 still walkers. So that was not even on my mind because somebody else was taking care of it. Well, these events are planned months in advance, right? Mm-hmm. So 2 days before the event, maybe 3 days before the event, suddenly I'm looped into an email that says, "Yeah, we'll get those other 4 entertainers with you." So I'm like, what other 4 entertainers? And so I call my boss and I'm like, what's going on? And she said, oh yeah, the other event planning company didn't have the right kind of insurance to cover their entertainers. So, and of course, and the venue is just finding this out now 3 days before the event. So yeah, you've got to coordinate 4 more entertainers, and we're not bringing on another coordinator to get to do it all. So and again, it's all about being flexible and just going, okay. Like that's what I'm doing. So they added 4 more entertainers that I had to get in 4 different places, along with the band and along with my other 2 aerialists. So you just make it work.
Make it work.
Yeah.
Lean into it. It's my favorite phrase. Lean into it. Tanner, how about you?
Well, one thing that I would just like to share with everyone is the meeting and the events industry took a massive, obviously, as most of our lives did when COVID hit. Meeting and events were the first things to shut down, last things to come back. And what we found since then is, whereas prior to the Rona, we would have lots of lead time. People were always planning ahead. They wanted to, we're going to start thinking about our holiday party in April. Well, after Corona, everybody was panicked that there would be another wave, there would be another surge, and so everybody was waiting to the last minute. We had a very large local corporate client here that decided on Halloween that their holiday party would be December 6th. And I was like, oh, nice. Okay. So what we've really found though is that the pace has stayed accelerated, because now we're dealing with the people that are getting back into a groove of, I want to plan ahead, I want to make sure that this is all buttoned up, and that's great. We're also dealing with these fires that keep coming, and it's somebody that'll say, yeah, I want to have this ready in a month or a few weeks, and more goes into event logistics than just your venue, your entertainment, your catering. It's a lot of pieces, and you want to make sure that everything's checked. So.
Someone else have a question? Well, while we're waiting for a question, I want to tell you my story. I know I'm the moderator, it's not all about me, but I think you'll enjoy this. Since working here, I like to tell Dragon Con stories that a lot of people don't necessarily know all the intricacies of. So picture it, Sicily, 2012. William Shatner's people call us 1 week before Dragon Con. I want to come to your show. He had never been a guest here before, so clearly mountains were moved. Phone calls for the programming book were called to stop so we could insert his information. So, you do what you can do, because to have the power of having William Shatner as a bragging right that he came to Dragon Con was far more important to the gratification of our fans than how inconsiderate it might be that we were interrupting the process of going to print for our program books, changing things in the schedule, finding space. As you see here at Dragon Con, space is prime real estate. So it's like, how do you carve out a 2,000-person ballroom with William Shatner, which is absolutely something you're going to need, when you've already filled all those spaces? So then we all go back to the drawing board to move things around. But you don't let him know, oh, thanks for inconveniencing me. It's just like, you just go, yes, absolutely, we're happy to do it. And then we're all like... So you just have to be flexible. But that's what makes it thrilling.
It is.
Seeing the fans that go, holy God, Dragon Con got Shatner.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then everybody thinks it was like, oh, they were saving this as a last-minute surprise.
Yeah, that's how they make their money. They wait to jack up the prices. No, sometimes they just call us and... Yeah, you're like, okay, Mr. Stewart, you would like to come to Dragon Con 2 weeks before that year. Called the office. Hello, this is Sir Patrick Stewart. I would like to speak to someone about coming to your show. I thought I was being punked. So I was like, 1 moment, please. I'm sorry, someone's not here to take your call. Can I take a message? Oh, I'm just... And I was like, oh, okay. And then it was legit, like, a UK number, and I was like... So then I'm calling everybody going, what do we do? And they're like, we got it. And I was like, please don't be a prank. Please don't be a prank. And it wasn't. So that's the kind of stuff, that's the exciting things, the things that make me do what I do, right. To see fans get to go, oh my gosh, I don't know what miracles. And you're like, well, they called us. Yes, we moved mountains to make that happen. Yes. Anybody else have a question? Yes. Loud and proud in the back. Yes, ma'am. Are you... Could you stand up and show off that cosplay? Is that Boston Rob from Survivor? We love Amber.
Yeah.
What's your question?
So I imagine this love of events and production started as a hobby or a side hustle. How do you balance finding joy in making content for yourself and also doing it to make money and your living?
Ooh, the paycheck question.
That's a good question. Because most of my time tends to go towards the shows. But as far as that passion, it's especially where they're planning for the next week's episode and things like that. I like it a lot of times. They're like, hey, and I'm part of the group chats that they have, and they're like, hey, what should we talk about for next week? And I'm like, I'll throw something out there, like, hey, I just saw this, and this is something that's up my alley. I think it will be fun. And they're like, oh yeah, let's do it. I'm like, yes. It's like, I'll give the example, one episode for the Bob, like they actually had the actor that plays Zordon as a guest co-host, and it was a whole episode talking about a Marvel movie, and he was part of it, and and of course fans lost it. They were like, oh, Zordon! And it's just like and then they're like, oh my God, Zordon's a Marvel fan! Oh my God! And everything, but it was one of those that everybody got so you can feel the energy of everybody as how we're seeing social media ticking up and everything, and it's like, okay, so having that inclusion of bringing something that you like or an upcoming thing that you see that's like, hey, this would be a good thing to talk about, and it comes into fruition. I think that brings that passion because it feels like I'm just not behind the scenes. I actually contribute a little bit more than just doing all the logistics and juggling all those balls in the air and hoping none of them fall because they're made out of glass.
True story.
How about yourself?
I think for me, I kind of fell into this. Like I said, I was a retail manager before, and I had a regular customer who's now my boss that I kept saying, hey, I would like to just maybe help out. And eventually she came one day and was like, she had a performer that had dropped out last minute, and so she literally walked into my store and said, can you be a Russian soldier tonight? And I said, yes, I can be a Russian soldier tonight. And so it just kind of took off from there. But for me, I'm not the creative on the team. I'm more the logistics guy. So for me, it's about more of a work-life balance. Like I work for event planning, and I do the logistics and I do the coordinating. But when I'm not at work, I'm not at work. I mean, I personally feel like there's definitely needs to be a line between your work and your personal life. And there is some crossover. I'm friends with a lot of people that I work with. But at the same time, I really like to get outside and get outdoors. That's where I feel grounded. So if I'm not working on events, I'm usually outside doing something. Like I like to get out into the woods. And so for me personally, it's just about keeping that work-life balance.
Yeah, I actually agree with that too. Sometimes it's hard to find that balance, especially in this type of industries that we are all in, because the days are long, the schedule's weird, and you're like, my God, I've worked for 2 weeks straight and I didn't realize that I hadn't had a day off yet. So sometimes you have to trust your team enough to allow yourself to have time. I think that's very important, but kind of in what we're interested in and finding ways to incorporate that. I think it helps keep the gig, happy. You enjoy doing it. And I'll lead into my little story.
Oh, good.
So for, obviously, I am a Dragon Con attendee. I first got interested or introduced to this when I was with the American Heart Association, and it was the year that we were the charity of choice. And so that was really cool, and I got to come and be a part of it, and we did the badge ribbons, and we had the big frame thing, and I was just like, it allowed me to flex this creative side that I had never been to Dragon Con, and now y'all can't get rid of me. But the really cool thing was when I changed to working with Destination South, we had an opportunity come up through one of our sales managers at the Hilton reached out and said, hey, we'd love to partner with you guys and do some decor. And we're like, I'll take that one, and so I was able to jump in, and our first year was last year when we did the Mario theme, which is
so fantastic.
That wasn't the original theme.
But you had to flex.
And we flexed, and we made it work very short this time. If anybody wants to know that story, I'll tell you later, not while we're live. And so it was really cool because that was such a hit. Everybody had such a good time with it that they then asked us to come back and do it again this year with Beetlejuice, which was so fun to put together. And then the added story for this year is you may have noticed that there were some sticky fingers before con started, and we lost one of our decor pieces. But the great part of it all that it all comes down to is the community rallied, of course. We saw all the support. and working with our local vendors that you build these relationships with, picking up the phone to say, I gotta reprint this one thing, please reprint, put me to the front of the queue, and they're like, we got you, we'll have it over to you, we're gonna reinstall with so many bolts. Bolted down now, but just being able to like you were saying, flex in what you love into your work, because obviously I can't do fun stuff like this throughout the year. So when I get the opportunity, it feeds your soul.
Barr, how about yourself?
I felt that question. I really did. And thanks for asking it, because it's a struggle. It is a struggle to do what you love and what you feel like you're passionate at and about, and get paid for it or get paid to do what you like. So for me in the industry, we do a lot of I do a lot of passion projects. I do a lot of things, sometimes pro bono, to make sure I keep my creative juices flowing, to make sure I dip into a realm that I hadn't been in and keep my creativity going. In my field, wonderful, but I still have so many people to contend with. The network, the marketing team, et cetera, et cetera. And then sometimes I'm like, I just want to do something creative and let it fly and just see where it lands. Could care less. I just want to do it because I love it. It happened for me recently, and I want to share that story. During the pandemic, I wanted my creative juices to flow. Now, interestingly enough, of course, I was mad I wasn't working, but at the same time, I was like, I finally have time to tap into me. Yeah. And I had a lot of footage from all my cosplay stuff that I had been doing, my events, the photographs, the photo shoots, and I said, I'm going to just cut this into a documentary because I can. I have the skill set to do that. Let's just have fun. We'll just see what happens. My friends, we can watch it one day when they come over. And luckily I talked to Melissa Rando, who is here at the con. If you meet her, give her love. So she was like, put it into a film festival. And I was like, girl, who cares? It's cosplay, it's my niche. She was like, somebody might care. So I put it into a film festival, put it into another show. It won awards. Wow. And then I said, okay, that's great. And then people took it on tour to all the other cons. So I'm like, wow, that's great. That's great. And then they're like, oh, we're in South Africa at Comic-Con. We would love to play your documentary. And I was like, wow, that's great. And then Cannes Short Film was like, hey, we would love to do a short. Do you have a short? And I was like, wait, maybe something's happening. So to fast forward to now, Prime reached out to me and they wanted to play it. So now it's airing or streaming on Amazon Prime. Wow. And it's on TV and it's on Slash. So it's called Cosplay Your Way in Color, if you want to check it out. But I brought that up to say that I needed that. I needed to do something that I was not tied to monetarily. I didn't have to answer to anyone, take it or leave it. It was what I just felt. I wanted it to be good, and luckily I had the skill set to edit well. And I know that get it mixed and all that stuff. But at the same time, I didn't have to answer to anyone. If it flopped, so what? I felt great. So do passion projects, do some pro bono work, and do stuff to keep that fire lit.
What I loved most about that answer is the fact that we took a really terrible moment of darkness in our life that probably hopefully we'll never see again. Okay. And exactly, knock on my head, yeah. But to have something beautiful come out of it when we were all just really suffering in so many different ways. Did anybody come out changed from maybe 2019 to current? Raise your hand if you feel there's a part of you that just had to alter change. See, so nobody really truly stays the same. We all evolve, but I really think that it took something like that to make some obvious, maybe needed changes, like more time for self-reflection, but also understand how your future paths need to go. So thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad for your success. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What's another question? Yes, sir. Loud and proud.
Hi. So it's one thing, like when you're working with people as part of a company, right? If you're doing the projects and stuff. How do you do it differently when you're dealing with volunteers, right? And you kind of got to get people to do the not fun stuff. They're volunteers, and they don't have to do it if they don't want to do it. How is that different for y'all?
Ooh, good question. Barr, can I kick it to you to kick us off?
Oh, absolutely. I feed people.
Okay.
I make sure that catering is spectacular. People like to be fed. I have choices. Ice cream, different things. I'm like, hey. And not to say that it's 100% going to get people to do what you need them to do, but for volunteers, I have learned on my TV sets, on everything, if people are fed, they really, really comply a lot better. It's so interesting. And you can say, hey, can you stay 30 minutes longer? We're going to have dinner. Are we doing lobster tonight? So I feed people well for volunteering.
Yes, food's very important. When we have opportunities to work with volunteers, a lot of times it is because they want to be part of that festival. The Atlanta Science Festival, for instance, is a very big undertaking, and they want to be a part of it. They want to be able to give back to their community. So finding, opportunities that will invite people to come want to volunteer, I think that that's important. And I also think it's really important that you give clear instruction so that there's not a whole lot of room for wavering, because we all interpret things differently. But when you have volunteers that are truly become your army of workforce, they need to know what their role is, and they need to know what needs to be accomplished so that everything's going to run smoothly. And check in on them regularly, make your rounds, make sure that they feel, heard, they get bio breaks. Those are always very important. And then I agree, food. Feed them, make sure they stay hydrated, but just, taking care of your people. And
I find personally, not just with volunteers, but for anybody that I've ever managed, that gratitude goes a long way.
Yes.
A lot of people will work for a thank you. I mean, as long as you're telling people thank you for doing that, thank you for helping me, thank you for being here, thank you for being present. A lot of times that's all that people will literally work for praise. So just be gracious.
Definitely everything that was said, but also a lot of times some people are looking for that time to shine. Especially a lot of places won't give a person a chance because they're like, oh well, you're just an intern, so you have no experience. So getting that opportunity to volunteer and get that experience, now they have it on their resume, and now they can go and say, hey, yeah, I did this for this huge event. I did this for this particular show. So now they have some experience to be able to find that role that they're passionate about because you gave them a chance. And then, of course, helping them and mentoring them. A lot of times they want somebody to be a listening ear to kind of help them, guide them in the career path, especially if you're already on the path that they're desiring to be on.
Absolutely. Oh, now the questions are coming. Now that we got 10 minutes left. Yes, that's how we do it. Can I go to you, sir?
So I was wondering, have you ever had a situation where you had to tell a client, no, we can't take you on? And if you ever had that situation, how do you handle that?
Dan, did you ever have to say no?
Yes. My name gets around a lot from people within the industry, within the con community, everything. So I have people reach out and say, oh, I got your information from so-and-so, and I'd love for you to work with me on this. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much for your interest. I'm glad that you saw, some things that you're desiring for your particular project. Unfortunately, my plate is really full at this time due to my other obligations, and I have to give first priority to my current obligations. But I will reference you to some other people that may have availability in their schedule that can give you similar quality that I provide. And that's the best way. Still being pleasant, but telling them no at the same time, because that's given that boundary, because if I don't, I would not get no sleep and y'all would not see me.
So true. I love that. That was such a beautiful answer. Is that like in your FAQ?
Yeah.
I get it.
Change name.
No, I think she's absolutely right. Like even if you have to tell somebody no, at least make them feel like you're still trying to help them by saying, I cannot personally do that for you, but I know somebody that can.
Let me help you.
Let me help you find somebody. Let me give you some suggestions.
Sure.
Yeah, and a lot of times with our industry and our company, at the end of the day, the company's got to make money or we're not going to be around. And sometimes, jobs will come to us, and it's so small that it's like, I can send you direct. You're going to be just fine. This is somebody we work with all the time. Connect them to the right people. But we have to sometimes say our schedule won't allow it. We're fully committed. And sometimes at the end of the day, you have to go, it's not that it's not worth it to us, but to spend the man hours when we invest in a program, you've got to make sure that that's going to be profitable on the back end. So a lot of times we can just say, let me put you in touch with the right people. And like you're saying, you're still taking care of them. You're still making sure they find their solution. Because yes, we do not want to say no, but sometimes you have to.
I guess I'm a little twisted. I say no. It turns into a counseling session a lot for me. From what I do, I'm like, no. And why did you ask me that? Why did you think about that? Did you do this? Did you do that? Do you have this in place? No, you can't get a show on the air with it. No, you can't. What are you talking about? So then I started breaking it down. Like, why are you calling me? I'm glad you have that, but why are you calling me and you didn't do what you needed to do? And you didn't do your due diligence. So I'm like, no, and call me back when you have something that's tangible and is viable. Okay. And until then, work on it. That's what I did a lot of times.
True story. Because I have that same dilemma at the DragonCon office. If you send an email to DragonCon, it goes to me. And then from me, I gatekeep and send it to whomever it needs to go to, because I represent the company with 120 leaders. So if it is a safety concern, I'm going to forward that email to safety if I feel it's something that they need to be involved in. As the show gets closer, my time to respond and really get in depth is far more limited, and it becomes that more cut short. Oh, you're rude. Well, don't ask a week before the show for things, unless you're Patrick Stewart or William Shatner. So, but my time in January. I have stories after panel about Jason Momoa. They're good stories. I get that task of having to say no, and the timeliness of it, and I tried to remember the way I would answer somebody in January, February, when I have more time to really lean into the whys in the hows, and what expectation did you have by calling this number when you're not prepared, versus in August when I just to go, no, absolutely not. I had said absolutely not to someone, and they were offended that the thing that they were asking for free was an absolutely not as a response, and they were so mortified that I was so mean to them. I'm like, you're asking me for free memberships to DragonCon? And I said, absolutely not. For your pitiful story, you're mad at me. Get out of town. I was just like, I cannot. But in February, I'd have been like, well, no, I would have massaged it better. So that's the battle that, when you're saying no to people, you kind of want to be kind, but at the same time, sometimes you just don't have the time. You're pressed for time. You're just like, no. Like the audacity. Unmitigated gall. Yes, Mr. Stevens, do you have a question for the panel?
Yeah, I'm a film student. I go to SCAD. I had the wonderful opportunity of being a production coordinator on my school's culinary show. And as you said, I take all these volunteering opportunities to put my time to gain those experiences and skills. I was wondering, during the beginning of y'all's careers, like in the early days when you guys were young adults, what was your first? Wow!
Oh, ancient! Back in the black and white days. Okay. What was your first? I will tell your mother.
Yeah, he meant last week. I'm sorry.
Get a tablet and chisel out of it.
What was your
abacus?
What was your first big project, and what did you gain from that experience in the beginning of your careers?
Was it a wheel or was it a fire?
Look at I don't, this is going to sound weird. I don't know what my first big project was because I had a TV show when I was a kid. But then
Now that's a flex.
Right?
Possibly recall.
So it's like I keep zigging and zagging. That's a hard question for me because my first big project. Well, I guess we'll take that. That was my first time, like being seen by more than my friends and my auntie and my uncle who says I'm great. So it was a wonderful experience. It gave me the bug to do different things. I'm from Ohio, and Ohio is a small place, and I had no dreams of being in LA and New York and doing Hollywood. But when I got the bug to do what I was doing and to be in front of the camera and the things that I could manipulate, I did get inspired to reach out for those things and feel like I had a place in those spaces. And luckily, I got a place in those spaces. I'm not necessarily at the top, but I'm in the building.
Okay.
I'm in the building.
So for me, when I got into the meeting and events industry, it was all the way back in 2008, it was kind of a slow burn at first. I worked on the college campus, and I was in their department, and I had a slow snowball roll. But then the biggest thing that we did, as most universities, is the commencement. And so I was over the commencement ceremony. And it's kind of one of those things of leading into and being able to grow and develop into being able to pull off the bigger stuff. And so all the way back then to now, it's, these events in Centennial Olympic Park that have 15,000 people. And, it's just, it's neat how no matter what industry and role you're going to be in, you will grow, evolve, you'll get better, you're going to learn more, you're going to do better. You're going to get there, and you're going to end up doing these really cool, huge things that impact so many people.
The networking. You meet peeps.
Yeah.
Scott?
So, like I said, I was in retail management, and then I've only worked for Absolute Entertainment full-time for the past 2 years, but I've worked part-time for them for 10 years prior to that. And my first gig for them was in this hotel in the Centennial Ballroom as a Russian soldier. Like, that was an incident. But now that I've come on board with them full-time, I've been able to take that and just what I've learned from working on that gig and kind of observing what goes on and what goes on behind the scenes. Now I'm their senior event producer. So I've taken that, what I've learned over the past 10 years, and just starting off with a little tiny small gig, and now doing the same thing, getting to participate in these great big, thousands of people, corporate conferences and events. So,
Dana, finish this up.
For me, a previous employer wanted to come up with something creative to help raise money for a local charity and things like that, and they wanted to really get the employees involved, but employees are just like kind of impasse, so they wanted to come up with ideas, and I was like, why don't we do, I was like, American Idol's big right now, it just came out, why don't we do something with American Idol? So they were like, okay. So I got to coordinate that, and we actually had Ruben Stutter, who was on that previous season, come, and he performed, but he was part of the judging, and we actually had employees of the audition like American Idol and perform, and in order to win, everybody had to be donations for that person to go to that local charity, and we raised a lot of money from that. But because of that, it was just like, okay, this is cool. And then of course they're like, okay, Dana.
It's almost when you set the bar high, they're like, come on back and beat it. And you're like, no. I love it. That's a great answer. So we're out of time.
Budget.
That part. You got the money. I'll give you what you want. We're going to pay for it. So we're out of time, but I want to wrap us out. Dana, where can the fans in the audience find you throughout the weekend? Is there another event coming up later tonight or tomorrow or Monday that you're going to be doing?
I actually have 2 other panels tomorrow.
What are they called?
Let's see. I will be part at 4 p.m. I'll be part of building fan communities at the Hilton Atlanta in the Galleria 7 ballroom. And then at 10 p.m. Tomorrow night, I will be on the So You Want to Build a Cosplay Following, also in the Hilton and the Galleria 6.
Nice. And how about yourself, Scott?
This is my last panel, so...
Yeah! So we'll see you at the Spectrum party later.
No, I'm going to go home. We'll talk about work-life balance.
That's why I'm trying to get you to do the life a little bit longer. Tanner.
So this was my first panel, last panel, but I will be at the Spectrum party later.
Yeah! And Barr, how about yourself?
Oh, I was just trying to look it up. I'm going to be, tomorrow come to the Vision Vogue fashion show. I'm going to be a host. That's going to be 2:30. I also have a 10 a.m. panel at the Hilton. I will have a 7 p.m. panel, and then I have another 10 p.m. panel. So, and that'll be over here. So that's the 7, the 8 and the 10, sorry. 8 p.m. and the 10 will be in this specific room.
Okay.
And then the Vision Vogue. And then look for me on Dragon Con TV. I'm going to try to wake up early in the morning to be on at 9 a.m.
Pray for the late show?
Pray for me, yes. Pray for me. I'm going to be tired. But that's where you can see me and find me if you want to see or talk to me for the rest of the weekend.
Fantastic.
Mind me, I'll be a zombie.
Well, please rate this panel 5 stars if you loved everything about it, and mark it accordingly. Give us some positive feedback in a way that we can take it constructively and understand how we can implement changes. If you felt there was something a little different that maybe we could have done to make your experience better today. Deal?
Deal.
Excellent. Well, my name is Tony Gowell, and I appreciate everyone for coming out for this fine hour of lights, camera, action.
So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will.
If this the land of the free, it was a freedom then, when they annexed Hawaii and called it Cedar Lands, without any type of payment and no signing off. Called themselves the Republic in 1894. 1.2 million acres overtaken from the native Hawaiians. When they resisted, the West retaliated in violence and erasure. The Hawaiian language is banned as part of colonialism's plan to expand, yeah.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. We will.
So if you put Hawaii into perspective, well, Black and Asian history is interconnected. Considering the fight with the Pacific, then of course versus Asia, they was treated as a middleman for war, but didn't let the Western colorism run its course. Cause dark skin was a sign of dignity to core. The land was taken in the name of capitalism, when prior to it was an actual kingdom. Clap back at the system.
Stuck between a rock and a hard place. Multiple bombings of Kaho'olawe as a part of their ongoing war with Asia. Used it as a place for target practice. No consent or compensation. Colonizers call for annexation. No regard for all the locals. School will never let you know. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. So many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. Too many stories left to tell, even if we have to ourselves. Can't keep history on the shelf. If they won't tell it, we will. We will.